So back in March of 2020, most of us had a couple of days to move our work lives, our learning lives, our buying lives, our entertainment lives online. And what couldn't be done online, by and large, couldn't be done. And some companies and some industries were ready for this, not that they predicted a pandemic, that they had become digital and let people do things from home. And other industries were completely disrupted. And now, as we hopefully are emerging from this pandemic, maybe just devoting it to an epidemic that we can live with, I think we can begin to see some of the winners and losers in COVID. What are the industries? What are the companies that will flourish and really were strengthened? And which ones have been weakened and may not survive? So always liking or preferring to get the negative out of the way first, let's start with some of the losers. One of the first losers is cash. Now, Americans never wanted to go to cash. We resisted it when people talked about getting rid of the penny, the world's most worthless piece of metal. We protested. We were afraid of consequences and prices going up if we went cashless, but we had no choice during COVID. And that's an example of no great crisis should go to waste. It makes us try things we wouldn't have tried. In the beginning of the pandemic, many of us were afraid that cash contained the virus, and we didn't want to touch cash. Most merchants didn't want to see us face to face. They wanted contactless delivery, where we would pick things up in front, or at minimum, we didn't have to exchange some common piece of paper. But we found that most people really came to like cashlessness, found how convenient, how useful it was, not having to go to bank machines to get cash. And today, on a list of how we prefer to pay for things, cash has fallen to number 4. The only thing we prefer cash over today is checks, which have fallen to number 5. So we think payment systems and all the gains of cashlessness, we think are going to stay. Second loser is Facebook. Now, this is a long time coming. It's not particularly COVID related, but it occurred during COVID. We know how powerful Facebook has gotten. The Wall Street Journal, Rupert Murdoch's Wall Street Journal, did some absolutely compelling work on Facebook over the last 2 months, showing that despite what they say, they know that Instagram, one of the properties they own, is very difficult or creates problems for young girls' mental health as they compare their bodies with the unreal bodies on Instagram. Despite what Facebook has said, they know this is a problem. Their bigger problem is that their business model is engagement, not on Instagram, but on Facebook itself. Their business model is engagement, getting people to stay on the site, see the ads, and their internal research, it's been shown, demonstrates that the best way to keep you there is not to give you pleasurable or pleasing content. It is to anger you, get you riled up, frustrated. And the best way to do that, of course, is through disinformation. We're now seeing serious government efforts to do something about Facebook. I think the feeling is enough is enough. It unites liberals and conservatives. Of course, they would be a very easy company to break up in that they're made of discrete pieces of Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp. Facebook itself recognizes the problem when they're now trying to obscure their corporate name and de-emphasize Facebook and make it Meta. It's probably now tainted Meta by their association with it. And it's a way also to sort of hide in background their chief executive and founder, who has become a lightning rod, in my opinion, deservedly so, for all that's wrong with social media. A third loser I see is in-person shopping. Now, this may be a surprise. Our work shows that as soon as people were allowed out, We flocked to shopping malls. We desperately wanted to get out of the house, be around other people, touch items. We went to shopping malls and stores in incredible numbers, but most of the buying occurred online. People went home and bought. We were in shopping malls and stores to get out of the house, to fulfill our social purposes. And that did lead to buying. There's no question about that. But the buying, which we did almost exclusively online during the pandemic, we think those gains will be kept, and the shift between in-person and online will continue. Fourth loser, we'll get through the losers pretty quickly and be able to focus on the positive. Fourth loser, no surprise to anyone, commercial real estate. There's not a company that runs an office that isn't asking themselves, do we need all this space? Do we need any space? Now, I think a war is coming in 2022 over work. I think most workers think they're going to be working from home at least 2 days a week, Mondays and Fridays. Most employers we talk to want the troops back in the office, whether that's ego, they like walking the hallways and seeing the troops, or whether it's they don't feel that work gets done not in the office. Regardless of what it is, we think there is going to be a battle. And no matter what happens, there's going to be some hybrid model. Maybe it's 1 day a week, maybe it's 4 days a month. And that's going to need less space. Commercial real estate is contracting. The happiest people in the world are those whose office leases are about to come up. The unhappiest are those who signed in January of 2020. We'll now be looking at whether can office space in some instances be converted to residential. Are there other uses? Another loser, business travel. We think a third of business travel is gone forever. Now, you travel for business for 3 reasons. 1, to establish business. 2, to maintain business. And 3, for meetings or conferences. The maintaining business and the meetings or conferences, that can be done on Zoom. We don't think all of it will, but some of it will. That's the third that doesn't come back. The part that we will still travel for is to establish business. Before we build relationships with clients, or they with us, or with investors, or people we're going to have business relationships, we do like to look them in the eye. We do like to shake their hand. And to my surprise, handshaking is returning. We like to get their measure, and therefore we think that business travel to build business will continue, but about a third we think will disappear. And that's very different from leisure travel, which I'll get to in a moment. And last loser, mental health. We've known with Gen Z, 16 to 24, before COVID, they've been experiencing a mental health crisis unseen in any teenage generation. Truly epidemic levels of anxiety, loneliness, depression. That's now spreading through the larger population. It's yet to be determined how much of that disappears when we get out of our houses and resume our normal lives. But I think you're going to see mental health professionals in the workplace, in the school, for at least another year or 2, helping people reacclimate. And hopefully it's a temporary problem. But our mental health really did suffer. And now to the winners. The winner on any list of winners the last 25 years, you'll find Amazon, no exception here. In the first 6 months of COVID, Amazon saw its business increase 60%. Now, we've seen lots of companies see successful companies see 60% increases, but they're $10 million companies. Amazon was a $1 trillion company and saw its business go up 60% in 6 months. We've never seen anything like that. They became literally our lifeline during COVID. They're now close to a $2 trillion company, And think about that. They're $2 trillion, and yet they're in three industries: retail, cloud, and entertainment, the Amazon Prime Video. And they're in about 20 countries. How big will they be when they expand? The three industries, that's growing. In our COVID work, we asked Americans, now we don't have a national health service to our detriment. We asked Americans if a non-healthcare company were to begin to offer healthcare coverage, who would you like to see? We gave them 15 choices: Amazon, Google, Facebook, Apple, Walmart, Costco, Starbucks, McDonald's, the post office. Number one choice was Amazon. In the banking and financial, we asked if a non-financial company were to begin to offer banking and financial services, who would you like to see? Same list, number one was Amazon. Incidentally, Facebook ranks about even with petrol stations, which in my opinion is where they belong. But Amazon, you ask people why you want to see Amazon in banking and in healthcare, and they say, I know them, I trust them, they offer good value and good service. So if they're this big, $2 trillion in three industries in 20 countries, how big will they be when they're in 10 industries? The two that they're getting into now, healthcare and banking, are two of the biggest industries on earth. How big will they be when they're in 10 industries and 100 countries? Another big winner, chip manufacturers. We know that there is a serious international chip shortage. Friend was telling me yesterday that in some of the new Teslas, there are 3,000 microchips. I didn't even know that there was room for 3,000. And there are only three global companies that can make the most sophisticated microchips, and that would be TSMC in Taiwan, Intel in the US, and Samsung in South Korea. There is a shortage. Automobiles are no longer transportation vehicles. They are computers on wheels. But even now, there are backlogs of 6 to 8 months, not just for cars, but for refrigerators, washing machines. The price of chips are going up, and the chip manufacturers are huge winners. Chips really do run our lives, and everything slows down without them. Another big winner, electric vehicles. This also had been going on before COVID. Tesla now has made Elon Musk the richest man on earth, although those records change constantly. Bill Gates was the richest man in the world for 30 years. Now it changes. And incidentally, in this week, in early November, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, Elon Musk lost $50 billion in 2 days, the largest loss any human being has ever experienced in 2 days. So it's going to change. But electric vehicles are here. The tipping point is past. There isn't an automotive company that isn't either offering electric vehicles or planning to. Countries are now beginning to ban, some on 10 to 15-year cycle delays, but beginning to ban internal combustion. Electric vehicles will replace and are replacing internal combustion. Another big winner, labor. Since I was a little boy, labor has been losing power. Power has shifted from labor to management. We've seen labor unions decline. That's now all of a sudden shifting. We don't have enough labor in what some people are calling the Great Resignation. 50% of the labor force in the US says they're looking for another job. 40% says that they plan to be in a different industry in 5 years. Restaurants, and this is true globally, many of them can't stay open or can't stay open all day or at full capacity because they can't get wait staff. Wages have to rise. In New York City, some restaurants are offering $25 an hour and $1,000 signing bonuses. Uber can't get drivers and the rates are rapidly escalating. Housekeeping in hotels, it's questionable whether hotels will be able to provide daily housekeeping other than very expensive hotels. Childcare, labor is really at a premium, and that means wages will go up, and with that, prices will go up. Another big winner, leisure travel. While business travel will lose a third of its business forever, leisure travel is going to explode at levels we've never seen before. No matter what happens, people will be doing some of their work from home. That means we're going to get sick of the same four walls. Many of us accumulated a lot of money, not traveling, not going out during COVID. The desire to travel, and it's going to be there for, I think, the next 5 years or so, is extraordinary. And we think leisure travel is just going to be at record levels. Getting to the end of the winners, telemedicine, seeing your doctor through the internet. Our work shows in the US, 75% of Americans have used telemedicine or would consider using it. And of those who used it, 89% satisfaction level. What people loved was not having to commute, not having to wait for a doctor, not having to be in a waiting room with other sick people, which is what you find in waiting rooms. And if you talk to the 11% who didn't like it, they didn't have a bad experience or get misdiagnosed. They just didn't feel that it was a real doctor's appointment. Just as I think the part of business travel that will remain is establishing business. I think you'll never see your doctor again face to face, except one, when you establish the relationship with the doctor, you'll want to build trust, you will want to meet. And then if you have a condition that requires that you be physically examined. Otherwise, before an appointment, you'll go to the local corner store and get your blood test, your blood sugar, all your other testing, and then that'll be delivered electronically to the doctor, and it will all be done through telemedicine, unless you need to physically be seen. Two last winners on the sinful side, partially. Crypto. After years of hype and association of crypto with drug dealers, money launderers, terrorists, heavy speculation, stocks make me nervous that can gain $2,000 in one day and go down 95% the next day. But crypto is here and it's serious. It may not be Bitcoin, we'll see, but the country of El Salvador has adopted cryptocurrency as official currency. The American Federal Reserve is not fighting it anymore. It's an irresistible way to have your own money independent of governments, and it's a way to move money between people legally and illegally. But crypto, more companies are accepting crypto. It is here to stay. And the last winner, as we see it coming out of COVID, is cannabis. Our work shows that cannabis use was up 40% among Americans. Cannabis is now, the stigma is largely gone. Companies like Walmart want to sell cannabis. What has really transformed cannabis, there are still those who use it for THC to get high, and there always will be, but the transformational element is CBD, which is turning out, most hospitals and doctors certify, a very effective treatment for anxiety, and our anxiety levels are at places we've never seen them before, but also for arthritis, for pains from disease or cancer. Cannabis is now becoming a huge business as mom and pop farmers are being replaced by big companies. And as more countries adopt it, and most countries are not enforcing their laws, there still are a few places where there is the death penalty, but cannabis really has hit the mainstream. And COVID really helped that along. So not a totally complete list, but the people we see as coming out of COVID ahead of the game, having benefited, some of them because they planned not for a pandemic, but they planned for disruption. Some of them that just got lucky were the winners and the losers. Some who ignored warning signs and were not ready for digital disruption, and some who just got hit hard and couldn't have possibly predict. It will be fun in a year or so to come back and see how accurate this list is and whether there are new people to put on it. But as of November 2021, these are what we see as the winners and losers. Thank you.